This lesson is going to take you through our Writer's Workshop Day 1. We're going to be trying to develop our thesis, and we're going to choose our prompt. So here we go. You have two papers that you need to be aware of. This first one is the one we're working on today in this Writer's Workshop. This is labeled Step 4 because of the previous steps we did in Semester 1, which I'm going to walk you through in a little bit. So that's what we're working on today. The second paper you will be working on at a later time. So let's focus on this first paper now and remind ourselves why this is considered Step 4. If you remember, when we walk through the argumentative essay, there's several steps to the process. And because we are here in second semester, we're going to put all Step 1, 2, and 3 all together in one paper. So let's look at it. So Step 1, we figured out what our prompt was. We chose our particular prompt, and from there we come up with some arguments which will answer the prompt. After we have some basic arguments in mind, how to answer the prompt, then we're going to start to try to craft our thesis. That's Step 2. Step 3 is having our thesis in order, having our arguments down, and then crafting the introduction paragraph with the hook, the narrative, the funnel in, and then looking further into our quotes. So Step 1, choose the prompt. Step 2, create the thesis. And Step 3 was creating the introduction paragraph. Now we're going to move on to Step 4 once again. Now Step 4 for us is what we're doing here in second semester. It's taking our three arguments and making sure that we combine them into one main argument. That's Step 4. All right, let's go ahead and do it, and let's choose our prompt. For our prompt, you have three choices. Choose one of the main themes of our novel. You can either choose the friendship theme, fathers and sons, or small group within a mainstream society. Now, what you're going to do after you choose one of those three themes is you need to argue that theme's significance over the other options. Explain its importance throughout the novel and the role it plays in the storyline and the development of characters. Now, there's a lot in that prompt, and you want to make sure that you're answering each one of those things. Explain why it's significant over the other options. Make sure you're mentioning why it's important in the novel and the role it develops not only in the development of the characters, but also the storyline. So you've got a lot involved in that prompt. My suggestion to you is to highlight some of those things and circle them to make sure that you're hitting all of the main aspects of what the question's asking. And also, to understand the question properly, we really need to understand the word theme. The theme in a story is an underlining message or big idea. In other words, what critical belief about life is the author trying to convey in writing of this novel? This belief or idea transcends cultural barriers, and it's usually an universal in nature in general. So friendship, the idea of friendship, how that is formulated within the novel and how that relates to life in general. Father and son relationships. And then the last one, the small group within mainstream society. So what we need to do again is choose which prompt we're going to write off of. I've chosen this particular prompt, and with it, I am going to choose a small group within mainstream society. That's the one I'm going to choose. I chose that one in particular, honestly, because I think it's one of the harder ones. Friendship and father and sons might be a little bit easier for you, but I'm going to go ahead and choose this one and walk you through the steps of this particular prompt. Okay, so here's my prompt. I've written it down on my paper. Remember, I'm going to do the small group in mainstream society. I've written the rest of the prompt down. It's important that I have the rest of the prompt on my paper so I'm reminded that I also need to argue the theme's significance. I need to talk about the importance of it within the novel, the role it plays in the storyline, and the development of characters. I need to hit all of those different things in the prompt, so I want to make sure to have it on my paper. My three main arguments that I'm going to use to discuss why the small group is important for this novel is I'm going to discuss the importance of Jewish community for the author, reader, and the historical context. So that Jewish community, the author's point of view, what he's trying to get across to the reader, and the importance of the historical context. The second one, importance of Jewish culture, tradition, and faith for the development of character. And then the last one, how the Jewish community within mainstream society is affected throughout the storyline. So those are the three arguments I'm going to go off of. Now, what I need to do, these are my three arguments, these are my three body paragraphs. I need to take these three arguments, and just as the arrows are pointing down to one main argument, I need to combine them into one main argument. This is what we're working on for semester 2. This is what you should be able to do as you move into sophomore English next year. You should be able to take your three main arguments and focus them into one main argument for your essay. That's difficult to do. So I've given you this extra step. What I want you to do right now is, out of your three main arguments, just come up with the very basics of what each one's talking about. Here's what I've done. Jewish community, culture, mainstream society, in historical context. Those are kind of the basics, okay? But I can't mention all of these. If I were to mention all of these and turn this into a nice, pretty sentence, essentially what I'm going to get is a 3-point thesis. And I can't have a 3-point thesis. I need one main argument. But before we work on that thesis development, let's just look at the main argument, the things that I'm kind of mulling around here to get to my thesis, and let's make sure they all connect back to my three main arguments that will be in my body paragraph. So argument number 1, do they connect? Yes, each one's going to be talking about community. Okay, argument number 2, do they connect? Yes, each one's going to be discussing culture, that Jewish culture. And then how about argument number 3, does it connect in? Yes, the idea of mainstream society is connecting in. Okay, so I've basically taken my 3 arguments above, and I've just kind of come up with some basic words. You'll notice in that main argument box, that's not even a complete sentence. I'm just giving you the main ideas of the argument so that I can try to formulate my thesis. One thing I want you to recognize in this process of trying to create your thesis, that in a sense you are leaning towards a 3-point thesis. Recognize this is similar to a 3-point thesis and would lead to a great funnel-in sentence before your thesis. So if you were to take this main argument, you could bring it into a 3-point thesis, and that 3-point thesis could be acting as your funnel-in. Because remember, in second semester, we're not to have any 3-point thesis. Okay, let's take this main argument now and let's try to craft from it a thesis with just one main point. So there's that main argument. Jewish community, culture, mainstream society during the historical context of the novel. These are just basic ideas. This is not even a complete sentence. We're just trying to find the main arguments from our 3. And now I want to craft a thesis. As I craft this thesis, I need to make sure that the thesis is going to address the prompt and it's going to offer my arguments. Okay, address the prompt and offer my arguments. So now's a great time to look back at that prompt. And then keep your 3 main arguments in mind. Here's the thesis that I ended up crafting. The reader's understanding of the Jewish culture in its larger historical context is the main theme of the novel The Chosen by Potok. Okay, looking back at the prompt, here's my prompt. Remember, I'm focusing on that small group within mainstream society. That's what I'm focusing on. And I want to make sure that it addresses the prompt. So yes, it does address the prompt. And yes, it does offer my arguments. The next part of that particular worksheet is talking about the counterargument and the refutation. Now, the counterargument for my particular theme that I've chosen, small groups in mainstream society, is going to be any of the other themes. So my counterargument could be that friendship is actually stronger than the theme that I've chosen, small groups in mainstream society. Or I could say that fathers and sons is a different theme, and it could be stronger than the theme that I've chosen, small group society in mainstream society. Okay, so I can choose either one of those, whichever one I want to choose, and I need to concede to that. I need to have a concession statement that states something to the effect that friendship is a very strong theme in The Chosen, and go and explain how friendship is a strong theme. Okay, that's the opposite side of the argument. And then in my refutation, I argue against what I just conceded to. Okay, I argue why mine is still more important. Even though I just gave you all these grand and glorious things about the theme of friendship, my argument, small groups in mainstream society, is more important because, and that's the refutation part of that particular paragraph. Okay, we're going to do more about the counterargument and the refutation in our next lesson. So I don't want you to focus on it too much for this particular worksheet. For this worksheet, I just want you to fill in what will be your counter arguments. So for example, if the theme that you have chosen for your essay is friendship, maybe you're going to say fathers and sons is also very strong, and that's the one that you're going to attempt to refute. Or maybe you'll refute the theme that I chose, the small groups in society. Okay, so just choose one of the other three that you would refute against for this particular prompt. All right, so that's what we've done. We're just working on this first worksheet. You've chosen your prompt. You've come up with 3 arguments which will address your prompt. You are taking those 3 arguments and you're crafting just basically some general ideas to try to force it down into a thesis. Once you have those general ideas, you create this wonderful and beautiful thesis. Your thesis, it could be something that you're working on for the next week and a half, and that's fine. It could be something that you bring to Mrs. Murphy and you have her help you, and that's fine. But from that one main argument, we're getting a thesis with one specific focus. Okay, and then the last thing there, just real quick, mention which counter argument you're going to choose to do. You don't have to get too detailed with the concession statement or the refutation yet. We're going to do that in the next lesson. So it's this worksheet right here, which is due for me. This worksheet here we're going to be doing next time. And when we do that particular worksheet, what I want you to notice is that you're going to take that thesis and you're going to place it right there onto that worksheet, and you're going to start working on your essay outline as you have already begun. Okay, so this first worksheet we're working on is really just for you to create your thesis off of your main arguments and get a general idea of what your essay is going to look like. The next time we do our writer's workshop, we're going to be doing the actual essay outline with you finding your quotes and finding all of your support and talking about that refutation concession statement even further in more detail. Okay, that's it. So once again, your assignment for you today, which will be due in Google Classroom, I'd like you to complete this by Friday, so I'm giving you some time to complete it, is this particular worksheet. Choose your prompt, come up with your 3 arguments, narrow that down into one main argument, craft a thesis, and then just briefly mention the counter argument you think you're going to concede against and the refutation for that. That's it for this writer's workshop. This is the worksheet that's due for you on Friday. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, place this worksheet in here on Friday when it's due. Okay, writer's workshop for chosen number 1 done. See you guys later.